इसमें फीड नहीं है। हाँ, इसमें फीड नहीं है। This is totally working. This is for the live purpose. नहीं, live में इसकी फीड नहीं है। नहीं, live इसमें है ना। Live इससे जा रहा है। Okay, so you're not piping anything from that into the live. ठीक है। This is- Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the two-day conference, Cultures of Childhood in Contemporary South Asia. My name is Anish Vasudevan. I am a research scholar from the Center of Culture, Media and Governance, Jamia Millia Islamia. This conference is the culmination of the collaborative efforts of the Department of Sociology, South Asian University, and the Center for Media and Media Communication Studies, Jamiahamdard. We would not have succeeded in this endeavor without the fervent support of CRY, Child Rights and Youth, New Delhi, Bal Raksha Bhavan, Save the Children India, Indian Council of Social Science Research, ICSSR, and SMEC Institute of Technology, Dhaka, Bangladesh. May I have a huge round of applause for our invaluable partners for their support. We are delighted to be joined by renowned scholars from all across the world. We have an enriching two-day program for you with discussions on text and tradition, inequalities and anomalies, mediated childhoods, and civil society and children. We have formed a total of 3 panels of esteemed speakers and 10 parallel sessions of established and budding scholars who will be presenting their papers divided across these 2 days. The parallel sessions will be held in their assigned rooms. Lunch and high tea will be served outside in the lounge area. If you require any assistance regarding directions to the room or anything else, our able-bodied volunteers are always available to you. And can we have a huge round of applause for the volunteer team? We have an eminent panel of personalities present who will be leading the deliberations of this inaugural session. Firstly, I would like to introduce Professor Reshma Nasreen. She's the Dean of School of Management and Business Studies as well as Dean Students Welfare at Jamiahamdard. She is Director of Center for Media and Mass Communication Studies. She has an extensive career spanning 25 plus years. She has guided around a dozen research scholars in their research and has her research interesting spanning all facets of consumer behavior and strategy with interdisciplinary focus, including microfinance, digital and functional literacy, and many other. She has to her credit more than 40 research papers in reputed journals, and she's not only an outstanding academic, but also an adept administrator as well. Next, I would like to introduce Professor Devnath Pathak. He is currently the chairperson and associate professor in the Department of Sociology in South Asian University. He is the author of the books In Defense of the Ordinary, Everyday Awakenings, Living and Dying, Meanings in Maithili Folklore. And he has also co-authored the book Against the Nation, Thinking Like South Asians. His research interests consist broadly of cultural performances, art, music, and popular cinema in the South Asian region. He was also the Scholar in Residence Center for Human Values, IIM Calcutta in 2019, and the Charles Wallace Fellow at Queen's University, UK in 2015. He is one of the editors of Society and Culture in South Asia, the journal which the Department of Sociology, South Asian University co-publishes along with SAGE India, with specific responsibilities as book reviews editor. Unfortunately, due to some unforeseen circumstances, Professor Hiraman Tawari could not be with us here today. So please pardon that. Next, I would like to introduce Ms. Pooja Marwaha. Pooja Marwaha is the CEO of CRY. She joined CRY in 1994 and was appointed CEO in February 2010. Her work focuses on creating an organization that attempts to foster a passion for children, a high degree of individual accountability to children, and a firm belief that in every person lies a potential to bring change for children. Prior to CRI, Ms. Mahabaha worked with Citicorp. She she is an Aspire India Fellow, a board member at Vani, and serves on the jury of the Ashoka Fellowship. Over her journey with CRI, Ms. Marwaha has played a major role in the NGO's development. Her work is focused on creating an organizational framework that attempts to better the approach towards children and make a change in the lives of underprivileged children. Next, I would like to introduce Professor M. Afshar Alam. Professor Alam completed his post-graduation in MCA from the Aligarh Muslim University and a PhD from Jamia Millia Islamia. Presently, he is working as Vice Chancellor and Professor, Dean of School of Engineering Sciences and Technology at Jamiahamdard. His research area includes software re-engineering, data mining, bioinformatics, fuzzy databases, and sustainable development. In his 25 years of experience in teaching and research, he was invited to many countries across the globe, including the UAE, Nepal, Syria, Yemen, and many more, for delivering special lectures and as keynote speakers in conferences. He has authored 10 books, supervised more than 30 doctoral students, and more than 200 postgraduate research projects under him. And he has more than 160 research papers in reputed journals to his credit. He is conferred with many prestigious awards like the Bharat Samaj Ratna, AMP Award for Excellence in Education, Cooperative Citizen Award, World Environmental Day Award, and Spardha Shri Award. He is also the member of various governmental bodies at both national and international levels, including the UGC, the All India Council of Technical Education, AICTE, National Assessment and Accreditation Council, NAT, Department of Science and Technology, DST. Next, I would like to introduce Sudarshan Suchi. He is the Bal Raksha Bharat's Chief Executive Officer. He is a seasoned civil society leader and an authority in participatory practices to empower communities to lead transformation. He has rich local and global experience in academics, development, and in corporate environment. An alumnus of the St. Stephen's College, BU, and Institute of Development Studies, IDS Sussex, UK. Mr. Sudarshan is a leading development professional with exceptional strength in conceptualizing and development-based programs and business models, efficient resource mobilization, instituting partnerships, and affecting collaboration towards issues that impact children's access to basic human rights. Over the past 3 decades, Mr. Sudarshan has led leadership positions with distinctive organizations such as the Reliance Foundation, Reliance Life Sciences, and National Dairy Development Board. Prior to joining Bal Raksha Bharat, he was the General Secretary at SOS Children's Villages of India. He also brings in academic experience, having teaching experience at IRMA, IIHMR, etc. He has also served on governance platforms, being on the board of Udyogini, which is an NGO, and Academic Council of IIHMR's Rural Management Program. He is a self-professed and self-trained farmer, and he is also the co-founder of the Udayan Center for Collaborative Learning, which is a grassroots NGO in Central India. And finally, I would like to introduce Professor Farhad Basir Khan, a professor at the Center for Media and Mass Communication Studies at Jamiahamdard, who stands as a distinguished figure with a remarkable 40-year-old journey in academia and the industry. He was the first professor of media and communication, as well as the inaugural Maulana Azad Chair professor. And while officiating as director at the AJK Mass Communication Research Center, Jamia Millia Islamia, he played a pivotal role in establishing it as a leading center for electronic media education. He has also founded several prestigious institutions, including the Department of Design and Innovation at Jamia Millia Islamia. His diverse research interests span communication design, visual studies, visual political communication, social media, business, and sustainability studies of indigenous art and craft. His prolific publication record also include the book, which is Game of Vote: Visual Media Politics in the Digital Era. Beyond academics, Professor Khan has done pioneering work in vocational education and has played a key role in the development of the Swayam MOOC program. His global impact extends to UNESCO-supported conferences on intangible cultural heritage in France, expert roles for UNICEF India and WHO CIR, and participation in prestigious events like the IBC jury in Amsterdam and the International CMS Vatavaran Film Festival. He is also committed to social causes and has campaigned on pandemic prevention, mental health, and strengthening democracy. Could I have a round of applause for all these speakers? I would like to invite Nida to present a token of appreciation on the behalf of the conference. Nice. Professor Nagrin. Next, I would like to invite Nabiha to present a token to Professor Bhatta. Next, I would like to invite Nida again for to give a token to Professor Sharala. And token to Mr. Suchi. To Professor Khan. Before I ask the dignitaries to address the session, I would like to invite Momin Osmani to start the proceedings with a recitation from the Quran.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, most merciful. O humanity, be mindful of your Lord who created you from a single soul. And from it, he created its mate, and through both he spread countless men and women. And be mindful of Allah in whose name you appeal to one another and honor family ties. Surely Allah is ever watchful over you. Thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt. There has just been a lapse in the welcoming. Let us welcome Mr. Sudarshan with a planter. That is the culture of Jamiahamdard. We don't give bouquets, we give planters because plants, we are focusing on sustainability.
Now I would like to call upon Professor Nazreen for the welcome remarks.
Good morning, all of you. Assalamu alaikum. Are we ready for the international conference? The Young School of Center for Media and Mass Communication Studies. We are barely 4 years old, and with under the mentorship of Professor LVK, we are taking small, steady steps. So let me take this opportunity to welcome our academic partners, our partners in organizing this international conference, Professor Dev, Ma'am Marwa, Mr. Sudarshan, I believe from Bal Raksha Bharat, and this Any event at Jamia Hamdard cannot be possible without the strong patronage of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, who is always eager to promote debates, discussions, and uh, he not only supports in that, he pushes us in organizing lots of activities so that the students, the diaspora, uh, is energized in terms of relevance, recency, and academic excellence. So thank you so much, sir, for all the support that you give us. And many times that support is almost unconditional. So we are honored to have you as an honorable vice chancellor. And like I told, Professor FDK has always been our mentor and is the senior most at the CMMS. And although I'm the director in charge, that is the administrative and all the advisors we take from Professor Khan. So this international conference, that is Cultures of Childhood in Contemporary South Asia, uh, I think it resonates with the ethos that Jamia Hamdard stands for. We stand for Hamdardi, we stand for understanding, we stand for empathy. Now, because we have got eminent research scholars here who must be much more acclimatized or knowledgeable about this particular topic, as an educator, as a parent, as a mother, in South Asia, what I understand is that across we represent the middle class, but if you see the upper class and the lower class, what we do initially with our children is the moment a child is born, हम लोग उसे किसी ना किसी प्रोफेशन से अरे ये तो डॉक्टर बनेगा ये इंजीनियर बनेगा एंड बिफोर द चाइल्ड हिमसेल्फ recognizes his areas of interest, we impose our expectations on the child. So that is one thing that I think we should abstain from. So what the Indian culture and what we as parents also do is whatever unfulfilled dreams that we had, we want our child to carry it forward without giving the child enough space to craft his own dreams and craft his own growth trajectory. So that is one thing I think as parents, as guardians, as educationists, we should introspect upon and give that kind of freedom of choice to our children and not the role of a parent is always to be supportive and most of us are supportive, but there is a very thin line in being supportive and being overprotective. And the moment we become overprotective, we thwart the growth of the child. So that is one aspect that we need to introspect and act upon as parents, as educators and guardians. And the second thing that I would like to say is that not all is bad in the South Asian system of nurturing the child. We instill in our children a lot of family values, a sense of responsibility also in the child for the house and for the society in general. This sense of support, sense of belonging, sense of allegiance to the family. Let's make it a borderline. Let's not go to the extreme of it. The allegiance should be there, but a fine balance is there. I think from the Indian mindset, what we can do is we can strive a very fine balance कि आप घर की तरफ भी उतना ही ध्यान दें और अपनी ग्रोथ को अपनी इंडिविजुअलिटी को भी आप उतना ही प्रोटेक्ट कर पाएं. If we are able to do that, I think some of the issues can be balanced. So conformity and rebellion के बीच का एक पार्ट, sense of belonging and sense of individualism का एक balance. I think with that note, I would like to just welcome all the delegates, all the participants, all the students of CMMS, all the dignitaries who have joined us, spared at time. We have IQAC Director and Dean School of Chemical and Life Sciences, Professor Raisuddin sir with us. Thank you for sparing the time, sir. We have got the boys provost and the girls provost with us. Dr. Professor Saidun Nisa is also the director for international school studies. And we have Dr. Babita Kataria, who is a placement officer. at the university level, and all the team who has made this possible. Thank you all for organizing. We hope we have a very successful event. And I don't think I'll be too optimistic in saying that well begun is half done. So it's a auspicious moment today. And we have started this conference, and we will, inshallah ta'ala, have a grand finale as well. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for that. Now I would like to welcome Professor Partha to introduce the conference.
I'll be as quick as possible because I know that we are running behind the schedule. So introducing a conference like this is almost like introducing oneself. It's such an intimate issue, cultures of childhood in the region of South Asia is so close to us that that it's difficult to put it in nutshell. However, I will try so that I save some of the components for the next panel. One reason why it gets almost personal while talking about this conference, while introducing this conference, is because we all know that personal is public. We all know that our biographies and history intersect, and they're coming together makes some of these issues almost so intimate to us that we begin to reason with them in very personalized manner. So it should not be surprising that like Madam was trying to suggest, that we also get into the business of educating very quickly about children, childhood. It's so close to us that we can't resist that kind of temptation. So it's personal and public at once. This is the issue where our biographies and history intersect, and we would get to hear some of these kind of the resonance of this in some of the papers that are here in this conference. In the papers, we have seen some of those abstracts. We get an idea as to how texts and contexts related to the traditions and practices and processes related to children and childhood. These texts and contexts come together and they create a very big worldview sort of meanings. And my personal interest as a sociologist, anthropologist, is primarily in that plethora of meanings that would unfold in the two-day conference. Second reason why it gets very moving to talk about the conference is that the child never ceases to exist in us. And even if we have declared ourselves grown up, mature, practical, adult, or elderly, even then we realize that there is a specter of childhood. If we try to forget it, some or other child in the vicinity, in the family, in the kinship, in the neighborhood would remind us. There is a perpetual reminder of this simple lesson that the children in you, in us, never cease to exist. And that is the reason why a conference like this becomes very personalized attempt for us. It's not one of those simply professional attempts where we, in a very technical fashion, we give some PowerPoint presentations and we forget about it. We are not doing it for any API calculation. We are not doing it for any kind of promotional benefit. We are doing it primarily because we are moved by it. So this conference, therefore, has to be taken in that context. Given the intimacy of the issue, many of these papers in the conference, in the two-day conference, would try to engage with the issues of tradition and modernity, coming to the turpitudes of the contemporary. And we tend to feel generally in common sense that everything contemporary is bad and everything of the past was very good. But we get to hear some other kind of counterintuitive ideas in engagement with traditions, modernity, and the tumultuous of contemporary. And this would also help us remember that while childhood allows us to get into certain kind of romantic utopianism, that all kind of songs, all kind of ideas come to our mind. We tend to be very romantic. We try to imagine our future with children in certain manner. But we also get to hear throughout this conference that the childhood is also site of various kind of subversions, various kind of disturbances. The childhood also has a locatedness in the structural, in the middle of structural anomalies. And yet there is this possibility that childhood children in South Asia hold out to many of us. Looking at that possibility also becomes necessary to flag at this moment, by the way of introducing the conference, that this conference is a conscious effort to forge a much necessary dialogue between various stakeholders, particularly academic and so-called non-academic. The so-called I use because we know that there is nothing called non-academic. Those who are working in civil society with children, their endeavors through their experiences, they are giving us plenty of academic inputs which have academic worth. But unfortunately, those who do academics, they do it in such a manner that it seems like their scholarship is coming from ivory tower. They speak in their own echo chamber. They listen to only each other. There is such an incestuous tendency amongst academics that it becomes necessary for a conference like this to start this necessary dialogue between those who are working in the field and those who are trying to write, document about those field experiences. So this conference is an attempt to break those silo-based understanding, those prisoners understanding of some sort. Instead, it is an attempt to start new dialogues, new possibilities of understanding children and childhood, civilization, tradition, modernity, as well as the contemporary challenges to us. Lastly, this has to be said that this idea of culture also makes us quite imagine quite a few rosy pictures. But we know from texts on culture in sociology, anthropology, and historical texts that culture is always in continuum. It is on a timeline, it is in continuum, it is always moving. It gives birth to reinvention of some sort of reinvented cultures we come across. And because of this kind of complexity of culture, we understand that culture cannot be reduced into our drawing room curios or the kind of items that we collect from souvenirs that we collect from various locations that we visit. This culture is a very complicated domain, and therefore when we are talking about cultures of children, childhood, cultural traditions, cultural modernity, contemporary culture, we have our eyes transfixed at that complexity in which childhood acquires novel meanings. I return to this plethora of meaning that would emerge in this 2 days conference, and we will get sense of dismay at times looking at some of the case studies that we would discuss. But we would also realize that ultimately the harbinger of hope is with children. Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you, Professor Part. Now I invite Honorable Vice Chancellor, Jamia Professor M. Afshar Alam, to deliver the presidential remarks.
Good morning. Assalamualaikum. Dignitaries in the dais, Professor Devnath Pathak, Imran Tiwari, Pooja Marwa, Sudarshan Sakshi, Professor F.D. Khan, and Professor Reshwan Hussain, and dignitaries of the dais. Students, dear students, and honored guests. Today we have gathered to explore and understand the diverse and dynamic landscape of childhood cultures in contemporary South Asia. The conference on the cultures of childhood in contemporary South Asia serves as a crucial platform to delve into the intricate tapestry of tradition, beliefs, and societal structure that shape the experience of the youngest member of our communities. The lives of children in South Asia are often an object of academic interest because of concern relating to child labor, trafficking in children, and street children, and child soldiers, to name a few. The two-day conference will explore topics ranging from the childhood mapped out in historical contention of childhood in the slum and childhood in a modern culture script. The conference will also discuss topics related to branding, child artists via the internet, and childhood in a Bollywood charismatic landscape. The conference will also cover challenge and issues such as the impact of armed conflict on children of Manipur, growing up with the digital gaming, and impact of changing entertainment pattern on childhood, to name a few. I congratulate Center for Media and Mass Communication Studies, Jamia for collaborating with the South Asian University Department of Sociology, then CRI, North Indian Regional ICSSR, Bal Raksha Bharat Gurugram, and SIM Dhaka, Bangladesh, to organize this conference on such an important theme. In South Asia, the culture of childhood are deeply rooted in a rich histories and traditions that define each nation. Every corner of South Asia has a unique story to tell about the upbringing of its children. Well, it's essential to recognize the diversity within each country in South Asia. There are some common theme and culture elements that influence the experience of children in the region. Extended family are often the norms with several generations living together or in close proximity. Then education is generally seen a pathway of social mobility and success. The families often prioritize their children's education and may take significant sacrifice to ensure the access of quality schooling. The educational landscape varies widely with the urban area generally having a better infrastructure and resource compared to a rural regions. The religion play a significant role in the lives of many South Asian families. Religious ceremonies, festivals, tradition contribute to the culture experience of childhood. There are variation in practice and belief based on the predominant regions, in particular religions like Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, Christianity, and Sikhism. Traditional gender roles are heavily influenced the childhood experience. Boys and girls are socialized differently with the expectation regarding behavior, responsibilities, and future role in society. Efforts have been made in a recent year to challenge and transform gender norms, advocating for more gender inclusive upbringing. Rapid urbanization and globalization have brought about a change in lifestyle and culture, impacting the way the children grow up, explore a global media and technology, shaping the interest and aspiration of a younger generation. However, these changes are also bring challenges such as a digital divide and potential erosion of traditional values. The socio-economic disparities have a significant impact on the experience of childhood. Children in urban area may have access to a better opportunities, education and healthcare compared to those in rural and impoverished regions. Child labor remains an issue in some part of South Asia despite effort to be addressed it. South Asia is home to multitude of language and dialect. The language is a crucial aspect of culture identity, and choice of language for education can influence of child's sense of belonging. The television, film, social media play a significant role in shaping the culture experience in South Asian children. The local and international content contribute to the evolving cultural landscape. It is important to note that within South Asia, there are a vast difference between countries such as India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, and Maldives, and Afghanistan, of course. And even within the region of these countries, additionally, ongoing social and culture changes continue to shape the experience of childhood in contemporary South Asia. As we engage in fruitful discussion over the course of this conference, let us not forget the voice of children themselves. Their experience, their dream, aspirations are at their heart of our deliberation. It is through understanding their perspective that we can contribute meaningfully on the ongoing disclosures on the culture of childhood in South Asia. At the end, I express my gratitude to each and every one of you in your commitment to this vital field of study. May our shared insight and collaborative effort pave the way of deeper understanding of the cultures of childhood in contemporary South Asia, and in doing so contribute to the well-being and flourishing of the region, the youngest citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I'd like to invite our guest of honor, Ms. Pooja Marwana, to address the session.
Good morning, everybody, on this very cold Delhi morning. Um, story came to me as I was sitting here. So I was in Maharashtra in one of our projects in a district called Latur. And I met a child from a community we were working with. The community are called Pardis. They are what is today called a denotified tribe, which at some point by the British were criminalized. And do you know what this child's name was? Her name was Charsobis. And I realized that we talk about as practitioners, as academics, we see the UN Charter, right? We see the UNCRC, and we don't realize what the right to identity is. This is a child whose very name is associated with the criminal justice system because that's how her community is seen. They're seen as criminal. And that's how our identity is going to be shaped. And we have in our country, in the countries around us, across the world, we have so many layers and varieties of marginalizations that are created by cultural differences like this. So to say that there is a childhood in India or a childhood in Nepal or a childhood in Sri Lanka is not real. It's not true. There are many, many, many childhoods that are driven by so many different kinds of issues. We are all familiar with saying, oh, poor, rich, urban, not urban, but actually the divides and the differences are very much more complex than that. And to me, as leading a practicing organization, CRI's always worked with children. The challenge in putting together and theorizing so we can create better solutions for our children that fit each context, है ना? Rather than, we are sitting and we are creating one, but this should work. Let's put so many teachers in place, let's do this, it's not going to work, right? Until we can understand. And that is to me why this conference and more like it are important. Because these conversations are about taking the experiences that we have with children and pulling together and taking out the threads of the academic disciplines that can be applied to this data. In CRI, we generate data on 3.5 lakh children every year, 108 indicators. What's the point, right? Unless we're able to process it. And unless our, the people who look at research, we work with academia to actually look at it. And to us, this is what we feel this conference and others like it. And the work that comes out of it, more importantly, should be able to give us. A school may fail not because the teachers were bad, but it may fail because the culture of the society whose children are in that school don't have corporal punishment, and the teachers come from a culture that has corporal punishment. So there is so much rich data out there on how different situations create different childhoods and how these different childhoods can therefore be dealt with differently and not with a cookie cutter, one size fits all approach. So to me, some of the questions that I would love to see come out of here is what are the most prototypical conceptualizations of children, right? In contemporary India, what are the things prototypes that we are applying, right? Do all children go to quota? Do all do we have to work with that issue? I hear more and more disturbing stories of the lack of agency for children, rich and poor, right? Children in an upper middle class situation also do not see themselves as having agency in choosing what they want to do with their lives because they are put into these IIT classes when they're in the fifth grade, which is hardly the time for children to be able to choose. Yeah, for example. So, is that something we should deal with? Or should we deal with the utter deprivation of the malnourished child, which is coming from the sheer lack of access to food? Yeah, are all the answers lying in eradicating poverty and caste and gender? Or does all of this overlay and play into creating the deprivations that we ultimately see, right? Which is what? Our future generation out of school, 50% drop out before they reach the ninth grade. 50%. Yeah, and this figure becomes worse when it comes to girls. It's still happening, right? In spite of us having a right to education. And, and, and as academics, you will also, I'm hoping, probe, for example, that what are the policy bases for this? Yeah, what policy can drive both these deprivations and therefore policy drive us out of these deprivations, right? Is there cross-cultural conceptualization at all, or do we ignore cultures? Do we ignore the fact that there are different religious persuasions? I mean, I find it fascinating that we ignore tribal religions altogether. We think they're Hindus, they're not. Yeah, but that's how we do it. We ignore them. We say, nahi, to sab wahi hai. And when you ask a tribal person, they're like, theek hai, I took Isa Masih and added him onto my pantheon of gods. You insist I add Hanuman? Come along. It's okay. Yeah, I've already got 10, 11th and 12th, and there is a somebody congratulating themselves that they've managed to convert them. So therefore, to me, you know, that's all I can say. That I am looking so not just looking forward, but something that cry we have been trying to do, which is how can we work with academia? How can we work with your ability to draw patterns, to identify factors that maybe as practitioners we cannot do because we are so deeply steeped in the issue, right? I'm solving the problems that is there today. How do I get this child back to school? How do I get her out of child labor? How do I get her out of child marriage? I'm busy with that. But you have the advantage of being able to step back from that and help me to theorize what would be more effective for creating change on scale. Because change is not going to get created one by one by one. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I joined children's work, I used to tell people, I thought it was a very smart thing to say, oh, even if I change one child's life, I will be happy. Today I say, no, I'm not. My ambition is to change millions of children's lives, and it should be for every one of us. And to do that, we need you to work with us. We need praxis. We need academia to feed into practice and practice to feed into academics. So thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to what you're going to do in the next 2 days. All the best.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to request Mr. Sudarshan Suchi to deliver the keynote address.
Namaskar, good morning to everybody. First of all, the most important lesson while I was sitting here, I learned is that the person who's representing our constituency, the person, the most VIP here, Joshua, is not bothered about us or what we are doing and is very happily engrossed in what he thinks he has to be doing. So, would you all have an idea who is Joshua and where is he? Yeah, that's him. Thank you. I got to know him only because I was sitting this side and spotted him very busy. And I was thinking, what's the message to us that children are giving? So they're giving that probably what we are talking about doesn't interest them. And I think that is a cue to us. And they still manage to be happy on their own. मैं actually साथ ही में while I had lots of thoughts of what I want to share with you, but some very broadly, loosely knit points which I want to put across. Pehla, there is a narrative of a future India, developed India, Viksit Bharat 2047, and there is one part of India which has already landed in moon, but there is another huge part, the Bharat, which is frozen in time. तो जो डेवलप्ड इंडिया का हम सोच रहे हैं वो इनके बिना नहीं हो सकता है, those who are left behind. So we may look at youth as the, like the dividend, like the cultural dividend, but they could be a liability or a cost if we don't put attention to bridging, and particularly, the vulnerable part of the among the children and the youth. So I think the time is now, if not, it's too late to be attending to that. My own personal learning about relating to children has been through bringing up my two children, or rather, they brought me up. And I learned a lesson at every stage of what not to do and how not to do. And then I also learned about forgiveness and about looking forward with positivity. They wake up each day with a hope. And here we are burdened with all kind of despair. So I think those are cues we need to pick. Sometimes we take ourselves too seriously, and which is why I was watching Joshua very carefully. He just doesn't seem to be bothered. We are all around here. He's just been, and he's been busiest from 9:30 onwards since he's come. So that was there. So I think the question we should all be asking ourselves: how well do we really know our children? How well do we know how the world looks from their side? That if I was sitting in his place, how does the world look like? What all is happening? And then to very modestly land ourselves, can we be of use to them? Are we being a hindrance for them? Can we make things better? And I think some of these questions is what we should be looking at, and it's time that we do that. And I genuinely feel, I mean, sometimes we do choose a topic, there is a certain idea of which we think is behind the motive, but there is the other side of it also. Frankly, what I quite often on an average middle class drawing room hear about the word culture and what it means ends up being almost intolerance, about being bigoted, opinionated, and very imposing in the name of culture. It is more an, I would say, almost an oppression. We actually leash out to kids कि हमारे culture में ये नहीं होता है. I have no idea what is that culture which seems to be prohibiting this, prohibiting that, and not this and not that. And yet we are wanting children to have agency and be liberated and to have a voice. So I would very actively encourage us to introspect if we are using the word culture, what do we really mean? And do we need to be frozen in time कि एक बारी 5000 साल पहले कुछ हो गया है तो that becomes culture, and you don't want the children to reckon with the new age world, the new era, and then say कि we are going to be developed. So that development narrative has to meet with a narrative of culture where we unlearn, our own traditions. We come out of being prisoners of past and look forward to the future. Maybe internet is the culture, maybe social media is the culture, maybe whatever it is. I think we should stop the business of what is not culture between us And I think that is something that maybe we could delve upon. I spent a whole lifetime, it's almost 36, 37 years that I've been working now. I began with and continued, I would say roughly till 2016, 17, dreading academic institutions, literally having an allergy to them, running away, and dreading the researchers who landed up while we were busy doing things. कि एक तो 10 क्वेश्चन पूछेंगे, उसको जो भी जवाब मिलेगा हमको कभी नहीं बताएंगे, जबकि हमसे सब कुछ लेंगे. And then जो भी वो बताएंगे, we'll have a reason कि ये क्यों नहीं हो सकता है. That was my impression. 2017, after 35 years, I took a break to do a master's. And I was among a whole, academic environment and also with students younger than my children. I saw a different world, a new world. Got a lot of time to reflect. And that's the other thing, Professor Dev, I want to add to your agenda among other things which we need to think about. I think it's neither this nor that. It's not that all practitioners are good and all researchers are useless. It's not that only researchers are the God-sent wisdom on earth and nothing else you can learn anywhere else. I think the blend, not only the blend is required, but I think more practitioners need to move more often to academic spaces. So academy needs to be, or education needs to be redefined from the perspective of practicality. I mean, I think if nothing else, COVID 2 years showed us lockdown mein, and maybe I tend to make an exaggerated statement, you can moderate it. I think our education system failed us and that's what it proved. इतना सारा साल स्कूल में पढ़ा के the moment the kid couldn't come to school, the survival skills were just not there. So if education was meant about survival, if it was meant about, finding the future, having hope, having resilience, I think science, maths, English, social study, examination marks just didn't count. And we made it worse by imagining that every child who joined an online class was a child who got that education. And I must honestly confess, I and many of my colleagues, when we join MS team meeting, we actually don't join. I mean, we are present there, but we are not present. This is people who are working. So imagining children because they have clicked on to attendance ki usko aa gaya is a myth. These are actually the cultural things which we should be worrying about. So I think we need to reboot education, to redefine that, to talk about survival skills, to talk about contemporary context. And I think this ease of movement between researchers getting to ground to do things and people doing to come to institutions to as a sounding board reflecting practice would enrich the students. And not the least, I would say that the overall orientation needs to be, for me, it's like a religion, is participatory action research. And I would say participatory means our friend and VIP there again, I'll draw attention to, who's busy again without paying much to what I'm saying, Joshua. I think they all need to participate in whatever we are planning with them, for them, about them, and context. And it will require great amount of tolerance, celebration, and appreciation on our part. Because we have a view, the moment you become experienced, the moment you become specialist, you have solutions before you understand problems and the person who's living the problem. So I think that's what we need to turn around, and we need to live and be able to accommodate all as a thing. So I would not take too much time before your tea break that is impending. I just want to say that I think the words we need to look for in culture today, because I'm afraid otherwise culture will again get blurred into tradition and into more of a feudal context. And I'm sorry if I'm offending some of you here, but this is what is coming from my heart. So I think the kind of culture we are looking for is a culture which is celebrating plurality. कि बहुत कुछ हो सकता है, everything and anything, multiple rights can exist, coexist. Tolerance, curiosity, innovation, and an appetite to take risks. So I think this, I would say, is a culture. So if there is a culture where children are afraid of their parents at home, of teachers in school, and of seniors, and just learn that, I think we are not handing over a good legacy for a developed India or a developed world. So it's time to redefine culture. It's time to offer back that space, and maybe we unlearn and relearn in the process. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, and thanks, Jyotia, again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suchi. Now, for the concluding remarks, I would like to welcome Professor Farhad Basir Khan to the dais.
Good morning, everyone. And uh, I'm very pleased to present this concluding remark as the convener of the conference. Um, it brings me great joy to host the conference at Jamia Hamdard, a highly conducive ground for discussions guided by the visionary leadership of our Vice Chancellor, Professor Afshar Alam Saab. The conference marks an exciting milestone, and I'm really excited to have this first conference of our young center for media and mass communication studies. This center has achieved phenomenal growth under the distinguished direction of Professor Reshma Nasreen. Protecting children is a fundamental responsibility of all states and all communities. It requires cooperation on all levels and contribution from civil societies, international, regional, and local organizations. I'm glad that this conference will help sensitize academia to understand their role in the larger cause of children. Since the beginning of modernity, childhood has been a central topic in the discourses on society and humanities. How children have been addressed, regulated, segregated, and protected has shown great variation according to age, context, gender, and ethnicity. Of course, there have been two childhoods. One, as we were discussing, coming from a certain privileged background. There's another childhood from faraway places, from places which have not seen the light of development, places which or within our geo and geopolitical region, people who are on margin. This implies the differential recognition according to the socio-economic background of individuals. Throughout the second half of the 20th century and in the second century, the social and cultural focus of legal dominance in the research of childhood has enriched science and humanities with concept of childhood that are migrating from periphery to the central sphere of our knowledge increasingly actively. I, when I was listening to all eminent speaker, uh, we have to understand that these issues are not an academic or coming from a perspective which is academic. It is our own issue. We have been children and we are children at certain part of our life. So I would like to mention that the changing narrative means changing the narrator, which means putting children's voices at the center. We believe that the child protection is the work of adults do to make sure children are safe. It is widely recognized that children and are right holders. Important issues concerning children rights should be put in on the priority. Many important problems in the children's right area remain unsolved, and that needs to be addressed. The principle of best interest of the child, as stated in the Article 3 of the United Nations Convention on the Right of Child, should be the primary consideration when interpreting all other rights of the child by both public and private sectors. This principle dictates that the concerns, organization, and rights of children must be given priority in every area that involves children. As we wrap up this inaugural session, I want to express my gratitude for the insightful and absolutely outstanding remarks provided by our esteemed speaker before me. They are not only set tone for the conference, but have also given us a glimpse into interesting themes that we will be looking forward in the coming session. The conference is centered around several plenary sessions consisting the context and challenges faced by researchers on studies on the children, culture, child, and human right defenders, and potential responses through mechanism and agencies aimed at defending elements for the subsequent development of a global strategy toward child culture rhetoric by discussing the changing narrative around the role and impact of the children. I express my gratitude to Professor Afshar Alam Sahab, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Jamia Hamdard, for encouraging and supporting us in every step of the entire process and for his thought-provoking presidential remark. And to our dynamic registrar, Dr. M.A. Sikandar, for extending his help and support. I thank Professor Reshma Nasreen for her thoughtful welcome remarks and for supporting the initiative. She worked tirelessly overseeing each of the minutest detail. I congratulate Dr. Devnath Pathak and Professor Biswajit Das, who is not here, for initiating this pertinent issue and coming up with the idea of organizing such an important conference in collaboration with Jamia Hamdard, wherein participation and experts from across the globe can come and present their thoughts and ideas. Initiating a dialogue on childhood requires a lot of support, and we have received unwavering support from the funding agencies, leading organizations, and other people who are working on child rights and protection. I thank Mrs. Pooja Marwa, CA of CRAI, Sudarshan Sochi, CA of Bal Raksha Bharat, for their support, and also my special thank to Dr. Hiraman Tiwari, who couldn't come because of his certain urgent uh, engagement. Um, I'm thankful to learn at South. I'm really thankful to the team of South Asian University, including Apur Kotoj, Abhinav Kumar, Shaini Majumdar, and Shairi Ghosh, and to the Jamia Hamdard team at Center for Media and Mass Communication Studies, including Dr. Zishan, Dr. Siddiqui, Mr. Ujjwal, Mr. Ravi, and countless students, volunteers at both the great institutions. I'm thankful to the Jamia Hamdard administration and its staff members. I gave my best wishes to all participants and look forward to engaging sessions in these 2 days. Thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you, Professor Khan. Now, I would like to ask everyone to rise up for the national anthem. Thank you to all the dignitaries. Now we will disperse for high tea. May I request all the volunteers to please show the guests outside, and we will be reconvening at 11:45 for the first panel session. Could all the participants come forward for a group photograph? Okay, अगले session में. आपने session का PPT.
चल नहीं रही हाँ यहाँ भी ये बनाता हूँ
नेटी कनेक्ट नहीं चलेगा.
फोन से चल जाना
क्या चलाना? लगा लो. कवर निकालो, कवर निकालो.